The Newsday continues here on One News Now. I'm Charles Lejano. 98.98% of all health workers in the Philippines have now been inoculated as of August 25, while 96.65% are fully vaccinated. To discuss this, as well as the other issues raised during the Health Department's media briefing, we have Greg Gregorio, now reporting to us live from Mandaluyong. Good afternoon again, Greg. Now that we have all of these numbers in place, will fully vaccinated health workers be eligible for shorter quarantine periods?
Good afternoon, Charles. According to Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere, they are still studying the possibility of having a shortened quarantine period for fully vaccinated health workers. According to Vergere, from 14 days, this could go down to as short as 7 days, but there will be an inclusion of 5th to 6-day testing before they will finish their quarantine on the 7th day. According to Vergere, they are still drafting this policy, and they would have to talk to medical societies and institutions for this. But once this policy has been approved and issued, Vergere said this will still be depending on the Infection Control Committee of each hospitals if they will implement this shortened quarantine period for their fully vaccinated health workers. Charles?
Right, Greg, do we have any updates on the release of the special risk allowances for medical frontliners who are directly attending to COVID-19 patients?
Charles, according to Undersecretary Vergere, a total of 300 million pesos has been downloaded from the Department of Health to its regional offices as well as government and private healthcare facilities for the release of the special risk allowance of about 20,000 eligible health care workers. Aside from this, Vergere said they already have an additional fund request for the 17,000 more healthcare workers who are also eligible for this SRA. Vergere even added that they are still collating the list of eligible healthcare workers as the submission of lists from healthcare facilities are still ongoing. Charles?
Greg, provided that there is everything in place already for the distribution of the SRAs, would all health workers be entitled to it?
Charles, Vergere said as much as they would want to give the SRA to all health workers, unfortunately their hands are tied because under the provision for the issuance of the special risk allowance, all those healthcare workers directly attending to COVID-19 patients are the ones entitled for this special risk allowance. Vergere said they have already talked to the lawmakers for the possibility of the amendment of this provision. Lawmakers have actually committed to amend this provision, and Vergere said once this provision or this law has been amended, they would comply. Charles?
Greg, let's talk about vaccination. When are authorities planning to start vaccinating children with comorbidities?
Charles, Vergere said we are still not vaccinating children as of the moment. Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere clarified the earlier statement of Secretary Francisco Duque in one of his past interviews, saying that we may vaccinate children with comorbidities. Vergere said this is a possibility once the vaccination for children has been recommended by our health experts here in the Philippines, and once it is already approved by the IATF, also depending on the availability of supply. According to Vergere, there's this unofficial allotment or budget allocation for next year, which is for the possibility of having booster shots and as well as vaccines for children. But Vergere emphasized that nothing is final as of this moment. Charles?
Greg, vaccine supply issue still definitely there, but what is now the government's take, or the latest take rather, on booster shots? Are we anywhere closer to having this approved?
Charles, the Department of Health has reiterated that as of the moment, we are still not approving booster shots as our recommendation and our strategy is to vaccinate as many as vulnerable individuals as fast as possible. And our experts have earlier highlighted that it will be more effective to achieve the population protection if we would vaccinate or protect all the vulnerable individuals before we go to the sector of the children who have lesser chances of having severe and critical infection. Charles?
Greg, what about the genome sequencing processes being used by the Department of Health? Are we seeing any improvement so far?
Yes, Charles, the Department of Health has reported that about 295.7 million peso budget has been approved for the expansion of the UP Philippine Genome Center laboratories in Visayas and Mindanao. Vergara said that the staff in these laboratories are undergoing trainings, while the said budget will be used for the procurement of reagents and sequencing kits as well as necessary equipment. They estimate to have this laboratory start conducting whole genome sequencing by a month or a month and a half. Vergara said once these laboratories are already doing the whole genome sequencing, the country's current 750 capacity per batch of whole genome sequencing could be improved to as much as 2,200 samples per batch of whole genome sequencing. Charles?
And thank you for those updates, Greg, and stay safe. That was Greg Gregorio reporting live from Mandaluyong. The DILG allays fears over granular lockdowns, saying local government units will provide food packs to affected residents. The government is looking to shift its strategy from region-wide lockdowns to localized granular lockdowns. DILG Undersecretary Epimaco Dinsing III explains that the goal is to curb virus transmission without disrupting movement and business operations on a massive scale.
Ang granular lockdown sa mga standard po na lokal na gobyerno ang po-provide ng pagkain or food packs. Magkaroon lang ng 2 kaso halimbawa sa isang kanto, ila-lockdown na ho yung kantong yan. Sa kung bahay-bahay naman, pag merong isa, ila-lockdown muna yung bahay. Unless nagkaroon ng cluster sa barangay, din po barangay po ang ila-lockdown.
The Delta variant of the coronavirus is upending every model of success that has emerged over the last 18 months, sending countries that were once ranked as among the best places to be during the pandemic tumbling. What are the best and worst places to be during this Delta variant surge? Bloomberg's Rachel Chang reports on Bloomberg Daybreak Asia.
Rachel, what are the rankings for this month? Tell us.
Right, that's exactly right. I think in August we're seeing how quickly things have changed, and in some ways, people are saying the Delta variant is really a whole new virus, and it's just changed that chessboard all over again. We've seen places like New Zealand, which is #1 for such a long time, plummet down the rankings. They've gone into one of the world's strictest lockdowns because of the infiltration of Delta. At the same time, we see places like Israel and the US, who are really leading that reopening, vaccination rollouts. They've also plummeted because of record surges of the Delta variant. So pretty much every model, every approach that has had some impact on the virus has been challenged by Delta.
At least can we trust that those highly vaccinated countries are doing a bit better?
So that is a concern, but one of the most optimistic scenarios is in the Netherlands, which is ranked #2. They saw that Delta wave go up, but it came down with very, very low fatalities, and it didn't really disrupt reopening because vaccination maintained a shield against that spread of Delta. I think that's the best case scenario for places like the US and Israel right now as they deal with that Delta surge.
Of course, there were some countries that had a low ranking at the start of the pandemic, and they're still low now. What do we know about those places that are really struggling?
Right. I mean, we're seeing the epicenter of the global outbreak really shift from regions from Latin America previously, and now where it's really centered is Southeast Asia. At the bottom of the ranking, all bottom 5 are Southeast Asian countries. This is a region now that has the highest per capita death toll in the world. You know, you're seeing places like Indonesia really surge beyond 50,000 cases a day. In last place is Malaysia, where the economic growth forecast has been halved for the year. So these are places that will continue to struggle because rich countries are just holding on to that supply of vaccines, especially now with the desire for boosters. We're going to see that inequality continue to worsen this year.
And even so, we have seen some people avoiding vaccinations. One of the concerns has been the risk of blood clots from the vaccines. What do we know now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the irony really isn't that some of these richer places, there's so many vaccines and some people don't want to take them. You know, what we know is that there was a latest study from the UK, which really has had a massive vaccination drive. Out of 10 million people who've received the AstraZeneca vaccine, only about 60 developed the risk of blood clots. That's compared to 10 million with COVID. That number of getting blood clots is about 12,000. So we know the risk of COVID is in every way much worse for your health than getting a vaccination.
Here's a quick look at some of today's headlines.
Not temporary, it lasts forever.
U.S. President Joe Biden vows to continue their evacuation efforts in Afghanistan and to hunt down those responsible for the twin explosions in Kabul. Bugbog na kami. That's what PhilHealth Chief Dante Gueran had to say during yesterday's House hearing on the state insurer's unpaid claims. And People's Champ Manny Pacquiao is hinting at a possible rematch against Yordenis Ugas. And those are the top stories at this hour. Join us again later at 2 p.m. as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories. You can also catch One News on Signal Play. Just register for a free account at www.signalplay.com so you can stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Charles Lejano. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.